It is Monday, May 17th. Let's do a audio and video check. Welcome to the Morning Magic with me, your host. My name is Jack, as that's what they started calling me whenever I was a baby, so they just went with it, I guess. And so we'll wait for the market to open up. A couple notes real quick. I do want to go through a list and talk about the S&Ps being down just ever so slightly, and then the NASDAQ being, oh, I'm sorry, I put in the NASDAQ twice here. Okay. So the S&Ps here, down a very small amount. This is, nothing to go crazy about. And we'll see, it's kind of a quiet morning, not a huge, not a massive overnight move to the downside. And this, to me, if we open up strong, we'll be looking for a gap up. And right now, if you were in the, well, if you received our futures, buying the overnight, I was filled, I believe, at 13. I don't know what my cost average is. I put 2 in for 13,325, and then I put 2 in for 13,350. And so my cost average right now is apparently 13,339.50 on 4 contracts. And just kind of sitting here going, okay, well, we better at least show some signs of life. And I think what we have is, because of the weak opening or the weak overnight, but it's not horrible. We've seen this before. We've also seen this where it can gap up. Now, anything could happen. I'm going to just be completely out, a little bit lower here. Because my cost average was lower than 13,350, I'll start looking at this. If we, for some reason, start to, catapult down below 13,300, I'll just call it, an unsuccessful overnight. But the thing is it's only $150, maybe a $200 loss, which I'm okay with because I scaled into it. And so if you are in at 13,325 or even 13,350, and you do have a 25-point stop, you may have already been stopped out before. But right now we have about 4 minutes before the bell. There's not a whole lot going on. I think it's just kind of moving around. What I find interesting is that we were up to 13,440 yesterday whenever we opened. So, a little bit of a pullback. I don't think this spells disaster. We have monthly expiration coming up, and we'll see how it we'll see how it unfolds here. Good morning, Zins. Good morning, Trademeister. You changed it. Hey, good to see you. Mark H, always good to see you. Patrick, awesome. So we're not looking fantastic right now on the overnight, but at least we're not, no one's losing their marbles, nor should you be losing your marbles if you have your stops on. So what I do is I just run through the ideas, look at the open, and then see how we open for about 15 minutes. I'll give you my open dialogue as we're watching it together. I do have some other volume scanners up here. I want to see if some of these beta stocks actually get a nice little bid. I want to see if things like Zoom and DraftKings and DocuSign and Square, some of the options that I want to trade this week, let's see how they open up too as well. But right before we get to the bell, I'm going to step away for 60 seconds and I'll be right back. And I'll be right back for the time that we are to open. And guess what I'm doing? I'm grabbing the coffee. You know how we're going to have a collective sip of coffee. I'll be back in 60 seconds. All right, folks. Well, if you're just hopping in, we are looking to be long this morning from the overnight entry of some of y'all maybe 13,300, some of y'all at 13,325, maybe some of y'all at 13,350. I'm scaled in, and my cost average is right above 13,330. Good to see you, JG, Mike. Welcome all my YouTube visitors, and we'll do the first 2 hours of the morning, and we'll be looking over pretty much everything you could think of as far as what we can look at that's the most important to figure out a trade. That's the goal. The goal is we are trying to put on a trade where we can find a spot in the market after about 10 minutes, maybe 15, and if it gets really weird, maybe, you know, if we start to really fall, I'll be stopped out of my positions. We'll reassess the situation, and we'll see just how crazy it gets. So here we are, folks. Let's see what happens. And right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over from a 15-minute chart to a 1-minute chart on both of these. We have slightly negative ticks, but somewhat of a bounce off of 310. Here comes 320. And like I said, if you're new and if you're just new to micro futures in general, I have improved my strategy, and what we did for the overnight was just some little fun that we had talked about last week. And here's a gap down. Don't let this scare you just yet. Let's see if this pops right off of this, because what we're looking for is just some liquidity break and some stops. And right at the beginning of the week, this can happen. This can be a, you know, a quick little scare. And if it really starts to let go, then I have to really jump out here quick. But I'm going to give this a fighting chance for the open and see what happens here. And if anyone's filled at 13,301, awesome. I like that entry. And it's really strange, you know, typically what we have is the overnight move happen already. And it seems like it's happening right now, which isn't, it's not best case scenario at all. But let's see if we don't, you know, recover at some pace here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Let's let all this riffraff kind of filter through. And it's not completely dying over here with negative ticks. The put call ratio has started out, well, we don't have a complete reading yet, but we know it's at 0.65. And there it goes. So let's see if we can bounce right off of here. How's everyone doing so far? Everyone good? And then there is a daily pivot at 13,299. Check out this chart real quick. So, yep, I'm still looking at Yeti there. Okay, here's the S&P, and it looks like we're trying to revisit the high, let's see, maybe 41. Yeah, we might bounce off of here. Let's see. We could just do a quick bounce. We just revisited this initial balance down here at 41.55, and on the NASDAQ, you know, if things don't get picked up here pretty quick, it might be a slower open. And what I mean by that is a slower recovery. So what I'm looking for is a little bit of a bounce, better sooner than later. And that's just not happening. Not just yet, at least. But I always give the morning at least 15 minutes to kind of figure itself out. You know, one of the things that I did as a newer trader years ago was trade way too early. I felt like I needed to be involved within the first 10 or 15 minutes of the day. And that is a trader's mistake. Unless you have a formula that is just ironclad and you are just, kicking butt and just understanding that, I think you're an anomaly if you're doing that. First of all, I think that is a complete outlier. And you just want to give yourself the gift of time for all the riffraff to clear out, because, here we are almost down 0.75%, and the NASDAQ's only down 100 points. This is what a market does. It goes up and it goes down. So anyone new to micro futures, the reason why I traded is because I love growing small accounts, and it's very, very stress free. Okay. So what we do is we let the morning riffraff out. We just don't do anything. If you have existing options positions from last week and you need to manage something, by all means go ahead. But right now we're getting a nice little bounce, and the market did not commit to going down a further about a 1%. And from there, if that were to have happened, we would be having a different discussion, because once the market is down 1% in the morning, that to me signals maybe not strong institutional selling, but it's definitely not up, right? There's commitment to selling the market, and that is something that you have to watch out for. And so my magic number is, if the NASDAQ is down 1%, 1, I don't short in the hole. 2, I don't buy it automatically. 3, I look for my spot just one more time, okay? And then let me manage some things real quick. There's really not too much else to look at just yet. And I think we're going to probably get that bounce. That's what it looks like, at least. All right. If you do have your coffee, I like to take a collective coffee sip with all my friends and members and all the viewers. So welcome. Enjoy your coffee. Let's have a great week. You got to do it, right? Okay, so we're back into 13,300. Let's see what the S&P is doing. And then at the same time, what I'd like to do is just keep my eye on things like strange high options volume or something like that. High options volume. And then what I like to do is filter this. And I'll bring this into view so you can see it. This is just very, this is so easy to look at. I'm just basically putting this on my screen and I go, well, what is up and what is down on good volume? And it doesn't have to be even good volume. It can just be, about 5 or 10 million contracts. Airbnb is an interesting play. We'll talk about that later as we jump into options just for about 5 minutes. You have, of course, AMC. Let's talk about Shopify, Google. So we're going to go through some of these names real quick, as the market is just very, very quiet at 13,300. And that is good, because we did not want that to bump down below initial balance of 13,257. We want a stronger bounce sooner than later. But like I said, the first 15 minutes, the first 20 minutes, you typically just want to let the noise settle, because you don't want to trade the noise, because the noise it's rapid fire, and it could be rapid fire against you very quick. So it's strange, right? The first time we do the overnight trade, the overnight move that's supposed to happen and the overnight just happened. So it's not it wasn't ideal, but at least we're back into, slightly green territory, or getting back there. And so here's my break even. Like I said, I don't remember where it was. It's some weird number, because I was dancing between 13,325 and 13,350. And I may have so I'm long 4 contracts at 1339.50. That may be due to me spreading that out last night. Instead of 25 and 50, I may have done 35 and 50. That would actually make more sense. Anywho, we've recovered, and now we're only down 0.5%. This is also where we have seen a gap up after clearing through all these stops. So I wonder if we wait about 7 more minutes and all of a sudden we're trading back into 1330, 13,330. There's so many numbers. And so, you know, right, my job is to do nothing. My job is to see the action. What does it mean coming from last week? And are we in a zone where we can, you know, is this a deciding factor? Is this move right now just very temporary? And so, you know, passing on my ideas and how I look at the Monday morning. As a professional trader, what I have been doing for years is waiting and waiting and waiting in the Monday morning. Now, I know that we're already involved in what we call the overnight trade, but if we were not in a trade, this would be a perfect climate for us to be putting in that lower limit order below 300. Obviously, we would have gotten filled. Y'all know that's what we do if you've been following for, you know, a few years. And so let's just see how potentially big this bounce gets if we can recover here quickly. So all we're doing right now is revisiting the highs from this morning. And the Sunday overnight went all the way up to 13,426. So that's where I think we're going to head at some point today. May not happen today. I think it will. I think it's really strange that we pulled back so much from those highs. So this will be an interesting day. It's already starting out to be pretty wild. A unique Monday for sure, where the overnight is delayed into the opening bell. We have an update from Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. Good to see you. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. And it's going through his screencast. I love David's work. He's got the Elliott waves here, looking at 4155 in the S&P, and then maybe 4166. Awesome. Thank you so much, David. Yeah, it's definitely not a super obvious, easy morning. Sometimes we get blessed and it can turn into that, but right now we're just kind of pivoting between 13,300. And let me show you something interesting. So here's a 1 minute chart, 13,300. What we did was we revisited this lower level and now we're starting to hold this. So I think we're going to hold 13,300 and start to grind higher. So I think you have a little bit more of an argument for a buy side if you weren't already involved or buying the long side at all. You could scale into this, maybe put on 2 contracts at 13,300 and maybe 2 more down below at 13,280 or 275 if we were to briefly revisit that. What I don't want to happen now, it'll make my job more difficult, is if we just stay super quiet and trade around 13,300 for the entire morning. I hope that doesn't happen. But this move does not confirm market weakness. All this is an opening down move, and it's really not that significant. So it looks like, let's see, SPX in this region still in the general area where a wave 4 should run out of gas if it's gonna. Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for that update, David. And then earlier last night, my target, if we were to have gone higher, I was looking for 13,400 and then 425 and 450. And we'll just keep an eye on everything. Now let's go over to my time frame setup. I have 3 frames of time for anyone that's new, and I trade off the 1, the 5, and the 10. And you can see we have market internals up here on the left-hand side. You can see that we are trying to recover quicker. And now what's even more interesting, remember, anytime that I throw up my chart here, always focus on the 5 minute first. Okay, we know what the 1 minute would look like, and we know that there's really not been enough time for the 10 minute to populate enough context for us. So it's a balance between the 1 and the 5. And right now, what I see is a squeeze with bullish momentum on the 5. And it's a high compression squeeze with a major ready aim fire buy from about 7 minutes ago. So to me, after the recovery at 8:30, once we did start to bounce, this might turn in, and it might happen a little bit later. This squeeze might fire, but it's turning into a high compression squeeze. I think it's going to, if we continue to push higher and start to get some green 10x bars, this might turn into a very similar Monday that we had, where we did have the gap down, we bought it, right? And then we started to catapult higher in a major way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was about a 40 or 50 point move in the NASDAQ. It was just a giant green 10x bar is what it was. So, obviously we're bullish. This isn't a fantastic morning, and we're still waiting to see another card. So, the put call ratio has actually gone down a little bit from 0.6 to 0.5 now. And so we're just waiting for this market to make a decision around 13,300. And the reason why that's a significant level is because it is right here in the mid zone on this first initial balance. And it's trying to recover. We really need to see something quick for this trend to continue higher and at least have a chance to go back into another important zone, which is going to be 13,350. If we can break through 340 going into 350, all right, then we have a little bit more potential for liftoff, because that starts to get really painful for anyone short first thing out the gate this morning, or anyone short that's already felt the pain from last night. So what I'm thinking is maybe it was just a little bit, maybe we were 25 points off for entry, but that's the beauty of the overnight. You're never going to nail it perfectly. And then you're giving yourself enough wiggle room to participate and do it without any type of emotion. So I always would say, watch your position size and have some stops. And as I verbally go through this with you, what I'm looking for, like I said, is if we can hit 13,340 in the NASDAQ, then that starts to look better for a higher bounce and at least a continuation there. So you can see why now that we're past 15 minutes, why we want to see the market open for such a long, you may think that that's a short amount of time. It's actually it's 15 minutes in the opening bell, and you have a lot more information now than you did whenever you had the opening bell. And let's say you wanted to, maybe enter a trade within 5 minutes. All you're doing is trading against algorithms for the first 15 minutes of the morning. Okay? Your human emotion will fail you. That sounds horrible, but their algorithms are made to exploit human emotion, right? That's how they find their computer owners' profits. So kind of a weird morning, but it's kind of after last week, it's, we have to have some stability above 350 for this to really start to make any type of difference for us. So we can start looking into higher, like 13,350 soon would be fantastic for us. This is not an easy morning, but it's trading. Looks like we have silver up just slightly. I think silver probably looks pretty good. It does have a squeeze, and it looks like we're trying to make that recovery into 340. And then in the S&P, I imagine we're probably, let me take a look. Did anyone buy the 4155 or the 4150 in the alert? I like the S&P better for, a bigger chance of a recovery, but we shall see. Gosh darn fool. Nice. Okay, so if you bought the 4150s, your first target is coming up here quick, which is 4160. But if you want to hold on to that, 4165 is possible. That would mean the market goes positive. That would mean the NASDAQ is now above 13,350. And that could also mean that we are off to the races higher. The market did not exceed 0.75% down. The market is now, and then in the S&P, it's only down 12 points. The NASDAQ is only down 60 points, which is nothing. And we really need to maintain this. If we don't, this might get ugly. Just be prepared for that. So I'm going to walk you through this as best as I can while looking at market internals. They haven't turned positive just yet. We know that they can any moment. And then as you can see, just more and more information being put on my screen. So you can see the high compression in the 5-minute with the bullish momentum on the squeeze histogram. You can see the 10-minute is squeezing now, and we have been trending slightly higher from the morning dip. So this to me does look bullish. I do want to give this a lot more time because we tend to be struggling below 13,330, and we do have negative 600 ticks. So either the ticks are broken this morning, or we might actually find ourselves down below 13,300 here if things get really ugly. I think we're about to make the recovery. And I might be biased, right? Because I have long positions on. But that bias, I don't really include that. Let me be very clear. Just because I have a position on, and maybe you do too, I'm not trying to, the market doesn't care what I talk about. So it really doesn't matter, if I have a position on or not. I'm giving you an unbiased review of my chart and what I see. And these negative ticks are the only thing that are going against us, those that are long. So let's let this play out a little bit more. I'm keeping an eye on VIX futures, keeping an eye on the ticks now that they exceed negative 600. So we shall see, but that 5-minute squeeze does look okay for now. The 5 and 10-minute 10x bars are concerning. They are red. We might be trading in a tight range. This might be a tight range morning. Let's just let the algorithms do what they have to do. And now the game is patience. So obviously we're not doing anything. I'm already in my long. I would not be stuck short just yet. I think we're going to have some wicked bouncing here. Let's go back to this 1-minute chart. Okay, 13,300 now. So like I said, keeping an eye on this. We don't want this to just completely fall apart. If it does, that's not great. And let's keep an eye on these ticks here. What's surprising for me right now, just doing this so much and looking at the ticks, they're not extremely negative, but they're not positive. Nothing really here to me is saying that things are falling apart until we start to get really negative tick action, and that could mean negative 800, negative 1,000, and then that would be like, okay, the show's canceled, get out, right? But I'm giving myself about 10 or 20 points more of wiggle room, just walking through this with you, because I have seen these type of Mondays before. It hasn't been recent. We've had gap up Mondays and gap down Mondays that continue to push lower, but this is a lot of back and forth, and we're not down 1% just yet. So let's see if we can get one more push higher. And I'm a little bit concerned about the ticks. Those definitely have my attention. Just keeping an eye on everything. All right. Hey, everyone in YouTube. So let me just answer some questions here for you real quick while we're waiting on the market to make a decision. How's everyone doing? Hey, Ken, what's the indicator? So these are 10x bars, and then that is Squeeze Pro. Good to see you, Rich. David, Applejack, nice. So we will be trading the micro NASDAQs and the micro S&Ps. And then initial balance is this worksheet right here that allows me to see the pivot zones. You know, where has there been strong selling, where has there been strong buying? And this is, you know, something that we can collaborate with the other workspaces and go, well, you know, if we clear a certain range here, if we go up maybe a little bit higher, then, you know, what's our overall upside goal or target? Or if we were to be shorting this market, where would the downside be? Okay. And then remember the 41.49, like in David's alert there in the message board, we've been watching this, right? The swing low down to 41.50 or at least 41.49 in the S&P. And here we are. So we're at that deciding factor right now, deciding moment. Now let's keep an eye on the ticks. Ticks lightening up just a little bit. We don't need to see them go down to 600 or 700 anymore. Hey, 90 bid even. No, my audio is perfect, y'all. If you want to try a reset, just close out your browser and come on back in. Okay, so here is a little bit of recovery after some wicked negative 600 ticks. Just floating around 13,300, 290, nothing really significant happening right now. Hey, Zion, good to see you. Good talking to you last night for a quick moment there. S&P close to V-score HPMR low. Yes, that's right. I'm looking for a bounce off of this. But we are squeezing on all three time frames. Looks like there's a lot of pressure, and if it releases, this will really look great if it gaps up here. But this is a strange morning for sure. It's already 9 o'clock Central, getting there, and we've had more downside in the first 20 minutes than we have had in the overnight. Almost the same, really, if you want to. I mean, two strong down moves, really. Hey, Travis, I see your question about the ticks. The ticks is a measurement of all stocks that are either up or down. And so if we have a lot of negative 600 ticks, which is a key number, so if it's positive 600 or negative 600, that's strong buying or selling, and it's something that I keep an eye on. If we have plus 1,000 or minus 1,000, that means ultra strong. And so it helps me gather up more information as to, okay, if the market's up, how high are we up on the ticks? Is it plus 600? Is it plus 1,000? But really what I look for is if the market is heading down, are the ticks significantly down, like negative 700 or negative 1,000? That to me signals institutional selling, and we are on our way down. But they can also be temporary, to where it creates this illusion where, okay, we have negative 600 ticks, and the NASDAQ only went down about 35 points, maybe 40, and then we started to recover back to 13,300. So it's just something that we call, it's a bundle, and we call them market internals. And so at the bottom, I have the VIX futures. That's the fear index. It shows me, you know, is there a lot of fear? And typically if this is going straight up, the market's going straight down. And then the put call ratio is how many puts over calls being bought. And if that put call ratio is going lower and lower and lower, right, the market is going to, you know, obviously be going lower, but it's starting to recover a little bit. So this is a very strange morning. This is my third YouTube stream and futures open, and we haven't really seen it like this. We've pretty much bought the low in the mornings, but this is a different morning because a lot of us here in the futures room for the overnight alert that we've only done it one time, is buying the low as possible and looking for, you know, a nice push higher. And right now it's just being stubborn. What brand of blue light filter glasses do I use? I have no clue. They're the $6.99 kind on Amazon probably. I had some $100 ones, but I like my cheap ones better. So another down move, but not negative ticks. Just keeping an eye on market internals. How's everyone doing in the futures room? So if we have negative 600 ticks, do we look to a move in the opposite direction unless it goes to 1,000? No, I think what you do is you sit on your hands. That's a great question, by the way. So the question in the YouTube channel there was, if we have negative 600 ticks, do we look for a move in the opposite direction? You can. That's the thing, is you can look for, you know, a continuation lower to possibly buy the dip, or you can short the market if it's, you know, showing a negative 1,000 value or something really crazy. But right now the market's just barely giving it up with only negative 300 ticks. And I'm just not convinced that we're going to roll over and die. I think we could, but very strange morning. Let's see here. Hey, everyone in the futures room, how is the audio there? Everything should be fine. Okay, so I have triggered short. I have got to be stopped out. And that just, the overnight there, we're getting a strong move to the downside, and so I have to be out now. Oh, it looks like I already was at 12,560 or 12,260. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try again. Let's wait about 3 or 4 minutes to see what happens.
Order rejected. Order rejected. Order rejected.
There's 58 and 40. Yep, everyone should be flat or stopped out by now. And we will reassess the situation. And this is where it gets tricky. Because are we going to, you know, now is this all the stops that need to be pushed out of the way for us to continue higher, or does this start to paint a different picture because we're down 1% now? So it's a fine line. That's why I always say have a stop. You cannot trade futures without stops. So what happened here was one more flush, and it was significant, but it wasn't on extremely negative ticks. So I imagine if you did take that overnight trade and maybe you were filled at 13,300, you were stopped, you know, out a little bit earlier this morning at the open. Right now we are at 13,250. I am flat. I do not have a position on. I too was stopped out. And then what we have here is a possible one more plunge lower, and we'll have to take a look at our initial balance sheet one more time. And let's keep it on the NASDAQ just for a moment. And this could also be where we bounce. Yeah, this might be a breach below 13,250, but we really haven't committed that way. Let's see if these squeezes here on this side are firing to the downside. Yes, they are. I just want to give this a little bit more time. This is a really strange morning. And there's a question, do I think the market is changing personality? Yes. Yes, we have clearly seen a change in personality of the market. We're back into territory with wild swings. We're back into the territory of weakness on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then almost a full recovery through the end of the week. It's very strange, but just being mindful of everything that's happening and just getting ready to pounce. And I think what we have here is probably the lows. So if you want to buy this at 13,250, I like that idea. I really do. I think this might be the end of this move, but if you want to, feel free to give this about 5 or 10 more minutes. We're starting to turn around a little bit more, and the ticks are starting to trend a little bit more positively comparative to the rest of the morning. And if you want to buy this dip right here, maybe at 13,250 or 260, you can give that a shot. And I think that the move here is just a little bit late. Very strange morning. Let's take a quick break. I'm going to keep this. I'm not walking away. A quick break from futures, and let's just look at, some other workspaces and just do a very quick, very brief review of all the big names. It's important to just look at those. We know what the indexes are doing. We know the situation now to where we've actually broke above 250. Hopefully we can hold this and go back into 300 for anyone that's still long. And, we'll continue to look for a long idea if the charts start to show that that's a good idea. Right now, it's a little bit iffy. It's more than a little bit iffy. So what I want to do is I'll go, okay, let's see what Google's up to. And Google's not down significantly, so that's not a huge problem, right? We don't want Amazon and Google falling apart. And now we're starting to get those positively trending ticks. Let's see if those go above 600 or even 700. We have seen stranger things. I remember that giant green wick that we had in the morning last week that brought the S&Ps. Look, Amazon is up, Google's down. Let's take a look at Apple real quick. NASDAQ still struggling below 13,270. I do trade commodity futures, not a lot, but typically if I do, it's going to be something like gold. And right now I'm long silver using SLV options. So I have SLV long, and I wouldn't mind doing GLD either, but I put on SLV last week, and here's GLD up $1. Okay. And I think that SLV, if you take a look at this chart real quick, I think SLV had either a 4-hour or an hourly squeeze or a weekly squeeze. Yeah, it was a weekly squeeze. So check this out. So weekly squeeze, stacked EMAs, this type of chart I want to buy. So that's what I did last week, was I just put on some options for SLV longs into midsummer. And that's my focus for commodities is just going to be long gold and copper and then silver. I actually prefer GLD, but SLV has a weekly squeeze, and I had already caught the move down here from $24. So I'm just kind of letting it run a little bit and seeing if we can get bid up all the way back into $27. Hi-ho silver, exactly. I love that. Awesome, Rich. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here, everyone. Any reason why you close to focus on the NASDAQ rather than the Russell? No, it's just a preference. You can trade whatever you like. We can take a look at that if you want to. And the Dow and the Russell. So what I do is I focus on the things that I've traded the most, right? So the big principle in trading is stick with what you know, and if it's working, stick with it until it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so I've been trading the NASDAQ and the S&P for years, and every once in a while I feel like the Russell gives us a nice little trade. So that'll be M2K and micro futures, but everything is just quietly down. At least it's not falling apart, because that would be from last week. That would put me a little bit out of touch with the market, because last week I nailed almost every move last week. And this right here is a little concerning for my market bias, like what I think is, based on some swing high and lows, especially things that David will put out with his Elliott wave analysis and some other initial balance levels. I was almost in perfect step with the market last week, and I was expecting a gap up today, this morning. So the fact that we don't have that kind of puts me out of touch, but that's why I wait for the right opportunity to see. This also, by the way, might be the dip to buy for the week. We're down here at 13,250 and we're holding it quite well. So I'm a little jealous of anyone getting in here at 13,250 rather than anyone that was trying to catch an overnight up move. So and do not forget, this is a resilient market. These pullbacks get bought up super quick. And I'm not saying that has to happen right now, but I tell you what, it is something that I've seen more often than not. And if you've been paying attention to the morning open, you know that this is true too. So, out of anywhere, we can all of a sudden get positive 600 and positive 700 ticks. And so we'll see how it develops. But right now, it is looking fairly weak, and we are down 1%. If you are looking at initial balance or anything like that, just take a look at this chart, and you will see that we are now starting to hold 13,250 or 13,244. So if you wanted to put in a limit order to buy the 13,244 with a 25-point stop on the NASDAQ, please do. That's way better than what I have done this morning, and that's okay. Part of trading is taking small losses. So that's just how the cookie has to crumble if you are going to take this on as a career. Your job is to manage small losses and then have a plan for profit taking. And everyone's a little bit different each way. You have to find out what works for you. What works for me is, it depends on if I'm long 3 or short 3 or 4 contracts. There's a dynamic there where I have to manage my stops or put closer stops, narrower stops on larger contract size, and then with less, I can let the market move a little bit more. But either way, it should be a non-emotional event. It should be something where you're going, okay, I know exactly what can go wrong, and I know exactly what can go right. Either way, whatever happens, I'm going to be just fine. That's the position you want to be put in. That's the position you put yourself in every trade, right? So, a quarterback operates from the pocket, right? Well, you want to trade from the pocket, right? You want to be nimble. You want to know exactly what can happen. You want to know your blind size. You want to have enough space for you to, successfully complete a pass into the red zone. to my favorite receiver of all time, Deion Sanders. I know that's a little dated, but hey, I'm a child of the 80s, okay? I have a passion for the Cowboys, even though I don't have a passion for football that much. But, you know, you grew up watching the best team on the planet. How can you not appreciate it, you know? Let's trade from the pocket. That's a T-shirt, y'all. Make that T-shirt. I'll make it. If you make that trade from the pocket, I'll buy that shirt. It just has to look good, and it can't be like, you know, some cheaply made T-shirt. You know, if you want to get creative, put the simpler logo on it. Trade from the pocket. Oh, I have so many T-shirt ideas. It's crazy. So this is super quiet, and there's nothing to do here except watch the ticks, look at my 5-minute and my 1-minute chart. Right now, it does not look strong at all, but at least we don't have negative 500 or negative 700 ticks. Hey, Benny, Jonathan, good to see you. Awesome. Thanks for being here, everyone, on YouTube. You're taking a shot at 13,244. I like it. I mean, hey, whenever there's blood in the streets, right? Permanent mute. Twitchy. J Bottom, I know he wasn't a receiver. I'm just saying that whenever he was on offense, he was awesome. By the way, the best defensive back ever. Good to see you, J Bottom. It's so funny. I can just imagine Deion wasn't a receiver. How about this? I like it whenever he caught the ball. I like it whenever he danced into the end zone. I only got to see it once. I was a kid, but it was epic for a 8-year-old. It was epic. Okay, so anyone that wants to buy 13,250, obviously you have your opportunity right here. If you're doing 3 contracts, you can do a very wide stop, so that it averages from 40 to 50 points. If you're doing 4 micro contracts, just keep it at 25. Oh, he did. Yeah, Deion also played baseball, and he also knocked the crap out of a home run. Like in his first game? Is that the story? The pocket is comfortable until the blitz comes. Yeah, and you have like Warren Sapp coming after you. I'm 35, born in 86. I'm an old soul, young millennial. I see both sides of the fence here. And I've been trading for 10 years. I grew up under my grandfather, who was an amazing investor, trader. So I have a lifelong experience growing up of listening to an amazing guy who just understood what exactly is happening. And what's really interesting was whenever I was younger, he would talk about don't pay attention to the news, pay attention to the price action. And, you know, I never really gave it any extra thought until I started hearing John Carter talk about that. One of his mentors, Paul Tudor Jones, you know, price action before news, price before news. And it could not be more true. So, you know, anytime you hear a news announcement, that's something happening already in the market, and they're creating a story or a narrative around it. I know that sounds crazy, but just keep that in the back of your mind. Even if you don't believe it now, just keep that in the back of your mind. It looks like we're trying to recover with some positive ticks. So anyone that bought that 13,250, I salute you. I think that is probably the bottom. Because we already have 50 minutes into the market. We've recovered twice and we double bottom at 246, and we're holding that quite well. And now the ticks are trending positive for all my YouTube people right now. We are at positive 500. Now that's not breakthrough territory, but it is hopeful. And if these could continue to trend above 13,300 and stay at positive 500, then you certainly did buy the dip at 13,250, and I applaud you. I will take a sip of coffee for you. Congrats. In trading, there's a thing called no high fives. Whenever you start high-fiving or celebrating a trade, that is the best sell signal on the planet. But I tell you what, it has not been an easy morning. It has not been an easy opening session. And thinking that we would probably gap up, that has not been the case, but we didn't exactly, fall apart either. So that's great. And now we have a turnaround on the 5 minute, and the 1 minute has good green 10x bars. That's the first thing I want to see for potential higher above 13,300. And if you look at this initial balance chart just one more time, you can see that we are really close to breaking through a very tight range morning. And if we can trade above 13,290, best case scenario 13,300, then that could start a cascade effect higher. It is way too early to call that, but right now on my charts, they seem to be turning around just a little bit more. So we're keeping an eye on this. Keeping an eye on it. Yeah, let's take a look at the S&P real quick. Make sure we're getting into 41, 57, 58, 59. Okay, we're at 57. You do have a 1 minute squeeze that's firing to the upside. You have a 10-minute squeeze that's trying to fire to the upside. Good green 10x bars. That's better than what we've been seeing. It's not promised land, but it's close. So let's just give this market time to breathe, and I'll just continue to run through my ideas with you. If anyone got a hold of any of our members here at Simpler, I have a watch list that will be released a little bit later in the morning, probably around 10:30 or 11. It gives you my focus list on what I want to trade and how I want to trade it. And so look out for that. You'll probably get any of our members, you'll get that email. So it'll give you my ideas for what I want to trade, like Zoom or DraftKings or Google. Just I made a small spreadsheet. It's very easy to follow. So, and we can run through those ideas here in a minute if you want to. I really want to pay attention to the market because we're trying to bump up above 13,300. We need some more help. We need market internals to start trending positive. And we need things like Google to start catching a bid. We need Tesla. We need all the big hitters to start holding their own weight. And Google is. So there's that giant 5 minute wick there that creates that recovery. It looks like we're above 13,300. Anyone at 13,250, start trailing a stop or just let this winner run into at least 13,340 or 50, but we have to break above 25 first. So 13,325, if you want to maybe take one off or start trailing a stop, that's what I would do if I were long at 13,250. Jack, which brokerage do you have? It really just depends. Everyone's a little different. All right, so now everything's starting to recover here. This is good. And we really have to be above 13,325 for this to mean anything to me. Oh, Jack, on Thinkorswim. So I don't use Thinkorswim for futures. David. Jack, I would do just that education tab and watch the 5 minute education thing on Thinkorswim. I never did it. I know that's so backwards. Like how I have never traded a futures contract on Thinkorswim. Jack, so my rules are on 3 micro future NASDAQs, have at least a 40 or 50 point stop, but on 4 contracts, 4 or 5, have a 20 or 25 point stop. Because you don't want to, you're risking more, and you don't want that to turn into a heavy loss that would be more difficult to recover from. And then on the S&Ps, that translates to, if you were long 3 S&Ps, you would just have a 5-point stop. Same thing for 4. I really don't change it with the S&P. I'm going to keep a 5. Sometimes it's a 7-point stop, but typically I keep it at 5. I'm just looking at silver real quick. So silver SLV is looking pretty solid. Let's see here. So I had a bid for 13,240. I did not get filled. I was thinking we could dip back down to this initial balance right here and go down to 13,240 or even 35 or 32. That's okay. I was being too much of a dick for a tick for sure. While I was talking about buying that 13,250, I had put in my buy order for 13,240. But I tell you what, this is a weird morning. We haven't had something like this in a long time. Typically we have a gap down followed by complete utter destruction. But now it's back up. It's craziness. It's got me out of my seat. Jay Bottom, I can't stop thinking about how I just called Deion Sanders a receiver. Sometimes he was. This is so funny. I know why I said that. Let me just be very open and honest. In the morning, part of my trading routine is, getting my coffee, sitting quietly for 10 minutes, and then I'll just throw on some YouTube videos that I just like watching that have nothing to do with the market. So sometimes it's like basketball highlights or football highlights, something with sports. Typically it's tennis. Awesome ATP Rome tournament, by the way, this weekend. Anyone that watched the semifinals and finals there, that was some amazing tennis. But yeah, I relax, I kick back, and whenever it's time to go, it's time to go. But the first hour and a half of my early morning is going to just literally be fun and relaxation. There is no, I'm not starting my scans until 8 o'clock. I'm not even looking at them seriously until 9:30, which we're about to come into. I'm not trading any options. I already have existing commodity options on. It is just a very light morning. Yes, I had to get stopped out for my NASDAQ trade. Super weird that, the overnight move, the significant move happened in the very first 30 minutes of the morning. Certainly not super fun, but we'll make up for it. You can trade with me in the in the futures room. We only trade micro futures. And I have vastly improved my strategy. And guess what, y'all? Tomorrow I have an announcement for class mastery on how to do all this. And I told you I would. I told you I'd have an announcement soon. And I'm going to come through with that promise. So stick around. I'll see y'all tomorrow. I'm not leaving right now. I'm just saying we have a new news update. And I'm jacked up and ready to give y'all the details once we finalize the date. But it's going to be real soon. You were just confused because you're like, I like my trades to be intercepted. Awesome. Oh, you can't beat the commentary here in the simpler room, y'all. Yes, I'm a huge tennis fan. I was state ranked in Texas. First year of college, I thought I wanted to play for a college that needs to be not known, but I tried to jump on the varsity team my first year at Baylor. All right. And I just totally learned that I probably wasn't going to have the commitment to practice as much as they did. And, first year college was difficult for me academically. So I just kind of said goodbye to it and had other ambitions. And at this, I'll be honest, I was investing and trading back in college too, not at the capacity that I am here every day, but I had other things I wanted to focus on. So I love tennis. News is just noise, exactly. And by the way, y'all, on crypto, so a lot of people either DM me in social or, chat me up or something, text me. A lot of people over the weekend, probably about 10 texts and then about 5 or 10 DMs asking me about crypto right now. I would stay away. I would stay away from buying just yet. And the reason why is because I think we're going to have a correction that is going to bring Bitcoin down to about 32,000. I'm not saying all cryptos will go down accordingly in relationship to that, but I think we are in line for somewhat of a correction before we go higher. Okie dokie. That's just my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. Let's keep an eye on these ticks real quick. Negative 700, so another wild swing coming in here. Let's see how long this thing lasts. This is taking me by surprise, y'all. This has been such a random morning that it does make it difficult, but we can learn a lot from this, and we can kind of decipher the situation, or at least try to understand it. We have been pivoting back and forth below and above 13,300 by 30 or 40 plus points all morning. Here come negative 900 ticks. So keep an eye on this. Anyone that bought at 13,250, you might consider just maybe taking profits and then maybe buying the dip one more time. I'm certainly considering buying 13,250 or 240 because I didn't get filled the first time. If we can get down there, I'll buy it, and I will show you all that I bought it. Right now I'm trying to have, so I have 4 screens at the Simpler office. Whenever we had it before COVID-19, I had 6 screens. I don't have really a strong preference either way. I think both work. I get to turn my head less on 4 screens, but I get to see a little bit less. But honestly, if you're a new trader, you shouldn't be focusing on your setup as much as you should be your trading plan or your workspaces. So I always just try to give you all the information, kind of my end of the story. So I operate off of 4 screens so I can look around and see all my scans, keep an eye on the indexes, look at anything that might be squeezing, and then of course, obviously paying attention to my focus list that I do actually want to talk about. So we go in to 10:30, y'all. So this is a 2-hour session, and we typically take about a 3 to 5 minute break halfway through. We're going to wait for that break just a minute, and then maybe here in about 10 or 15 minutes, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll finish out the morning going into 10:30. There's a lot happening, so I don't want to just step away, and there's really no reason for me to. It just gives me a moment to rest my throat, drink some water. But right now, this is a very, very weird time to just step away, and I think that we need to be paying attention to this. If anyone else, has something to share, let me know. If you have a workspace that you like, and you're seeing something that that's leading you one direction or the other. I can see the ticks, and we're going pretty negative. For anyone that was in the YouTube channel asking about negative and positive ticks, guess what? We've seen both. We've seen both in a strong way. So this is a very volatile morning. It's difficult to trade in this. You're not going to get perfect entry and exits. This is for anyone scalping. This is a good scalping market. Taking 20 points here back and forth. That's a little bit more advanced. More advanced traders do this. So that's kind of the environment where you go, okay, I'm going to try to get 20 points out of the market. It seems to be just going up and down, take profits early. But right now, I just want to introduce to anyone that's new, anyone that's trading, you know, for their first time, just how to look at the markets in the first part of the morning, of what not to do and what to do. And here come the negative 800 ticks. And we're not trading in a tight range anymore, and we are not breaking above or below 13,250, and we're not going above 13,340. So we are in no man's land, and I will be looking forward to buying 13,2. I'm going to put in for 13,245. I think if we get down to 250, there's a strong chance that we'll, you know, pull back another 5 points. Angry Jack, that's funny. Okay, see you later, Jack. I'll see you later this afternoon. Jack, price before news on the mastery. That's good stuff. I love it. Jack and J Bottom, you get the comments of the morning. Let's keep an eye on these ticks real quick, folks. Yeah, 13,245 is where I'll be buying the market. Yeah, and I'll show you all that once we get down there. You'll see my order get filled. I just did a really good job of organizing stuff on all my screens, and I don't want to mess it up until we get down there, and I will show you all that I've entered my position.
Order rejected.
Yeah, for sure, Patrick. I will post it out. In fact, I'll do that right now. I need to get that ready. So I am going to open buy for MNQs, micro NASDAQs, at 13,245 with a stop loss at 13,220. Target 1, T1 will be all the way up there above this second ATR. Man, and it's probably just going to have to be 13,330. Let's just do that. That's what I would love that. Or I'm sorry, 13,300, but I think we might just break into that. And then T2 is going to be that 13,325. And just to let you know, a lot of my targets on the NASDAQ on 4 contracts are just 25 points, because typically that's 1.5 ATR. Okay, average true range. $13,245, stop loss at $13,220, target 1 $13,300, target 2 $13,325. If you want to target 3, it could get a lot higher. So let me double check my level on my initial balance chart, because I don't want to overshoot this. But 13,385, and that's based on that very simplistic chart here. And what that is that's perfectly, it's a little bit below the overnight lows. And I think if we start pushing strong above that level, then we'll be right back to where we were not only last week, but anyone that's left short from last week they have to get out of their positions, because now they're 3 or 4 days involved in their they're 3 or 4 days already involved with their shorts, and they're going to get squeezed out. So let's watch this happen. I did not get filled at 245. But yeah, anyone that bought 250, nice. All right. So I'm going to put this out. Obviously, I'm not going to get filled because we're 60 points higher, or a lot more than that now. But let me go ahead and say not filled, but we'll leave this order open and continue to look for more entry points on a dip. Super weird morning. Probably the weirdest that I've opened up out of all the openings that I've ever done. Giant swings, getting stopped out. This typically does not happen. Typically we buy the dip almost on the spot, not